Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Ms.Marvel, Season 1, Episode 3. So, within this episode, they throw around words like clandestine and Jin and Eric Selvig, the guy from the Thor movies who was sharing a beer with Thor in the first Thor movie, if you guys remember that movie. Or eventually any of the others that eventually will lead to Thor Love and Thunder, coming to theaters eventually somewhere down the road in July. Yeah. So, Ms.Marvel, this episode, of course, is to tell us who Kamala technically is, besides supposedly a human being. And so, Kamala is to come to find out that the people that had been in a car with her via the last episode need to go on and do some interdimensional travel. And so Kamala's kind of backing and forthing about that, whether she should kind of help these people or not. There might be risks involved. So Kamala is, in this episode, having to mostly deal with a wedding on top of her doing some possible saving a race from what? Not quite sure. Because it really just seems that they are desperate to just get out of this world. But why? What threat are they facing? Is it just that, like, they have better cookies and steaks over in their dimension? What's going on with that? I don't get it. So, we have Kamala, who's also dealing with a problem with Bruno in this episode. And so Bruno is basically telling Kamala, it's like, well, hey, like, do you want some of this or no? Like, should I go on and just be looking for, like, something else? Or what? Like, yes or no, come on down. You're the next contestant on the show, if you know what I mean. And so Kamala is just kind of dealing with a lot of stuff. A compiling of a lot of stuff, but there isn't much going on in this episode still. Because we have, of course, Ramir, we have his wedding going on. We have him going on and being married to Taisha. And so that's what eats up a lot of the time, to the point where I'm fast forwarding to the point where they're dancing. Because, again, if I fast forward through every singing and dancing thing from any other superhero show, I'm going to fast forward through this. Because it's not important enough. Because I'm like, oh, another show where they dance. F it all. What is it? Is it singing and dancing in every superhero show? Why? I complain about it in every show, and I can't go on and not just be like, well, like, it's fine here, but everywhere else it's not fine. No, all of it has to be done the exact same way. Because I like to be fair. If one show's not good, probably a lot of other ones aren't. So it is what it is. So yeah. But we also have Ms.Marvel, who kind of pulls like a Batman Begins kind of thing by the end of this episode, where Kamala doesn't get pretend that she's drunk and is kind of shouting at everybody like, yeah, like all you phonies and freeloaders that that stare at me, like, leave now, this isn't a joke, leave, go on ahead. So with this episode, I would have to say that this episode is to probably be an Oakley Dokley episode, which means it's an okay episode, but that's very weak. Because there's still, like, at least there's, like, some action going on, interesting action. We're basically saying that we're kind of, like, teasing you that eventually this girl will get the suit that you see in posters everywhere, and you know what the suit looks like, but you have to earn this suit for some goofy reason. Here's the goofy thing. people were to have even had photos of this suit before the show was even out. So everybody already knew what this suit looked like because people were taking photos of this suit and be like, oh wow, like this suit looks really cool on this girl. And so, really, we have to still earn a suit that we shouldn't because this is Miss Marvel. I would probably say the exact same thing for a show like uh, like Iron Fist. Like Iron Fist, like they didn't really give us a suit ever for that character, and that bugged the crap out of me. And they would kind of tease the fact of like, oh hey, here's the like the Iron Fist mask thing that he wears for one episode, and I'm like, really? You can't just dust that bad boy off and just give us that mask every single episode? No? Great. Just tick me off. So that's like going on and having Punisher without his skull shirt on. It's like, yeah, like he should always go into battle with skull shirt on. It always makes sense. But like we just have a number of superheroes that don't have to make sense. But at least we have the Iron Fist tattoo, technically. That's on the chest. You ever watch that show? Moving on. Because I'm sure Colleen Wing is eventually going to be on Shang-Chi or one of these other kind of shows at some point. Because they're already wanting to, like, intercross all those things together. Here's hoping for a Heroes for Hire show if we're possibly getting a Defender show somehow or another that isn't the Netflix kind, because I'm assuming like Netflix doesn't like or Disney doesn't like to go on and play with something that isn't exactly theirs. Like they don't want to really go on and like do another Defender series from a Netflix thing. They can go on and possibly do like Daredevil if they try to tweakingly do it differently than the other thing did, or whatever the heck else they're going to go on to do. Maybe they're going to do Daredevil movies. That might be tweakingly different. Anyways, moving on. This show is boring. And let's go into spoilers. I've talked for too long. I would rather talk about other things. Spoiler time. It's about that time we can do spoil this episode. So, Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan is to go with Najma, and speak with Kamran. For somehow I remember that name. So, come to find out, we find in the 40s that Aisha, who is Kamran's grand relative, and so Aisha had gone on and found this bangle, and she was hoping to go and have all these clandestines go back to the Noor dimension. And for some reason or another, because I guess British was invading India, it didn't happen. Because eventually there were people coming into the cave that they had found this bangle with, so they were like, hey, let's get out of here. So, for some reason or another, Aisha was to leave this bracelet for her family, and Kamala just so happened to get this bracelet. So, we have it revealed to Kamala that her family is to be a family of jinns. And I'm like, exciting. Evil genies, whatever. We have it where, in this episode, Yusuf is talking to Bruno, and Yusuf is to mention, like, what exactly a jinn is, an evil genie, and so on and so forth, that they've gone through a number of different names and stuff like that over time. And I'm like, yeah, I said that in other reviews. Like, I immediately knew what exactly that was. And I was like, oh, so we're having evil genies in the show now? Wonderful. So there isn't an actual, like, comic book character that I could really look up and be jazzed, like, oh my god, that character is in this show? Wow. Instead, I'm just going on and like, oh, Jins. Wow. I'd rather watch Wes Craven's Wishmaster, but okay, sure. Jins, let's be excited about this. Let's be riveted about Jins. Not an actual Marvel villain character. Alright. It's just whoo! Even Jessica Jones had like Purple Man or like any number of characters. Like, yeah, Iron Man had, or Iron Man, Iron Fist had like the hand, and so did Daredevil, but at a point of two, but still, like, at least the show, well, like, Daredevil had Kingpin and Bullseye. That was interesting for what it was. And then the hand was kind of mixing in a little bit, but then like Iron Fist mostly had, and like Luke Cage, like he had some villains that weren't exactly so like, ooh wow, but like it was a really good story though. Pushing on, Kamala Khan is a djinn. Great. Anyways, so we have the Jinns that are all, or we have the clandestines that are all telling Kamala, like, well, hey, we need to travel to this other dimension. Will you help us out? And Kamala's like, yeah, about that, I don't know. Because come to find out, Kamran is to have found that this whole Kamala doing this thing could be dangerous. And Kamran is kind of ticked at his mother for even suggesting Kamala do this because there could be risk involved. And Kamran is like, well, hey, like, maybe she shouldn't go on and do this because it's risky. So, but Najma is just like, well, like, we've run out of time and I want to get to this other dimension because, like, I want this, and so we're going to do it. So, besides that going on, so we have Kamala who's going to this like pre-wedding party where it seems that Amir is to have lost all of his shoes. And we also had the priest who is putting together this wedding, who is to have these detectives, these DOD detectives, who are to come to his church and are to have kind of question him. And we, of course, have Nakia that's to say, it's like, well, you guys need a warrant to kind of come in here. And so don't be coming in here unless you have a warrant. And the preacher is like, well, yeah, like also come in here with some with your shoes off the next time. So because it seems that Nakia was to be able to have seen Law and Order reruns, so I guess she knows how the law works because Law and Order reruns. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't go on and say like, "Hey guys, anybody can be a lawyer if you just see Law and Order reruns enough." If you've seen an episode or two of Cops, you could probably just like you probably know the law. You probably know the law really well, right? So Nakia is to mention a warrant, and the DOD's like, yeah, like, I guess we do need a warrant. I guess we'll leave then. So we have Kamala at this party, and we have Nakia and the preacher, the pastor, the guy coming to this party also. And so Kamala is to get supposedly a gift from Bruno, because he was busy doing things. So Kamala ends up getting this shoebox, and she opens it and realizes that the gift that Bruno is to give her is this Ms.Marvel mask that she didn't even try on in this episode. So in the next episode, She'll try on the mask and still have none of the other costume. It'll be great. We'll wait a week to still not see this costume. Great. Even though we should have had it by the end of this episode, whatever it is, what it is. That's great. So, because Bruno is to go on and research for Kamala. Because Kamala is to, after she's done talking to the clandestine people, she then talks to Bruno and is to say, like, hey, do you have any research on, like, interdimensional things? Because you know math, and so that's the same thing as interdimensional travel. And Bruno's like, well, I think I know an Eric Selvig paper that could probably help us with this, like Einstein, Rosen bridge, and all this other kind of weird, goofy stuff. Because I just watched Thor Ragnarok, a little bit of it. So I'm just garbity gooking anything that happened from Thor. Hey, Rainbow Bridge, yeah, right, like dimensional hopping and teleportation and this and that, right? It's same, right? So Bruno is to go on and go through the library and find out everything that he can about the Jinn and clandestines and also interdimensional hopping. So Kamala is to be at this party, and then she goes off to be on her own to see this box and open it up and see this mask. And so the priest is to go out to speak with Kamala, and is to really say, it's like, well, hey, like good is like a thing that you do, like not like who a person is. It's just like you just, if you're, you don't have to be like a good person, but if you go on and do good things, then like no one should label you a good person. Like people should just see you be doing good things, so to speak. So Kamala is to go on and see that she is separated from this party, because she'll always be separated from everything that she is to go on to do with her family and her. Because it'll happen. It'll happen sometime soon where she's going to be torn apart and she's going to be in some SHIELD or DOD thing. And then she'll be homesick because she's like, yeah, like, I spend so much time with all these teammates and all these characters that are great and will give me a huge paycheck at the end of the day. But man, like, I'm homesick. I'm sure that's what's going to happen within this show, right? But eventually she gets put on some team somewhere, or eventually Ms.Marvel season 2, which I won't watch, because I just won't. There needs to be some real like cameos in season 2 to get me interested, because it has to be that way. So we have Bruno that is at this the Circle Q store, kind of holding down a shift, and we have Yusuf that is to come in there because he has a hankering for fruit pies, even though his wife doesn't want him to. He's like, but I just can't have enough of these fruit pies. Delish. So Bruno all of a sudden has this paper about all the jinns and the clandestines and all that stuff. So Yusuf is like, well, hey man, like, you're keeping my secret about the fruit pies. I'm just gonna go and read all your shit for you, because I can actually translate it and you can't. So I'm gonna read it off. So Yusuf just starts reading all this stuff about the jinns and how they're genies and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like, watch Wishmaster and you can get the same amount of information within that movie. Nothing that I've heard different before. So, going on and having, like, this to be, like, a genie that doesn't grant you wishes within this show, it's basically just a powerful entity that is to go on and, like, in normal, like, shows and stuff, is usually the villainous character, the bad character. So I was just like, oh, okay, so this is going to be the villain of the show, obviously, because there's nothing else going on. There's nothing brewing here. there's no purple man or anything like that, so that's gonna pop out of the shadows and be like, hey, I'm the real villain of the show. I'm the real villain. Yeah. Boring. Anyways, so we go on, and we have Kamala now telling Cameron, the guy, uh Cameron, that like she is willing to help, but like she needs more time to think about things. And Kamran is like, well, hey, just focus on the wedding and kind of tweet me back later. So Kamala is to go on and do this wedding, and we have a moment where Moniba and Kamala are talking in this bathroom because Kamala is to have this boo boo on her knee, because she is to grab her knee. And Bruno's like, hey, what's wrong, Kamala? And Kamala's like, yeah, my knee, like, you know what, I just superhero landed on it, and it hurts, and, like, I didn't feel it until now, but it just hurts. So, Kamala and Muniba have this nice moment, where Muniba is to mention, uh, like, how like they can't even believe that their son or her brother is to eventually get married, and Kamal's like, yeah, I can't believe it either, because that seems to be the real focus that I came out of that whole bit of dialogue with. So, because I can't pay attention to this show. So, wedding. We also had Bruno that was mentioning to Kamala that he was going off to school, and Bruno's like, "Well, hey, I want to go off to this tech school, but it seems like there's a lot going on with you, Kamala, and plus also like you haven't even like when are we gonna kiss? Like, is it gonna happen? Is it not gonna happen? Am I boyfriend material? Like, I'd like to know." Or otherwise, going off to college because I got better things to do with my time. But hey, like, I'm gonna be here for you, wanting to be your friend, and like, there's no strings attached. That whole kiss thing was like, it was just like icing on top of the cake, but like, I want to know if there's more here than just me being Gopher Boy doing stuff for you. So if it's not, then maybe I should just go on to school and get my education, and then come back and be smarter for you to help you out after you go on and meet up with DOD people and SHIELD people and agents of SWORD and all this stuff and figure that all out. Because man needs an education. No. Anyways, so Kamala is just like, yeah, about that, I don't know. Like, really? I think Kamala should leave that up to Bruno. Or Kamala should just be trying to find a lot more smart people. Like, maybe give Bruce Banner a jingle. I don't know. She's a superhero now. She should just be able to just find Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, right? Anyways. So so now we go to the wedding. So they're doing the wedding. The thing is happening. We have a moment where Amir is talking about how much money he has in bank. He's like 700 and so on dollars, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of money. And Yusuf is just like, wow, I couldn't even believe that you have that kind of money in your bank account. And so Kamala is to go and listen to her father talk to her brother and go on and mention that like he can be like two kinds of people, and just like have faith that eventually everything will work itself out, and be like passionate and whatever, or you can be like another kind of person. And so Amir is just to say it's like, well, hey, yeah, I might only have like $700 in my bank account, but let's give this a shot. So Amir and Taisha go on and get married, and we have the whole ceremony. It seems when we have the preacher ask both them 3 times if they do marry this woman or this man, and they do. So they now pronounce him man and wife. Wedding is to be over. They have more of the focus on the after party. So the after party, of course, is to do what any certain kind of show would normally do and have this big lavish dance number, which I'm like, okay, I've kind of been waiting for this because I kind of expected this to kind of happen. Like I was kind of expecting it to happen in like every single episode, where there would just be like oddly just in every episode just be this dance number. Um, because I was kind of expecting there to be like a dream sequence or something where there'd always be some kind of like dance number that happens in every one of these episodes. But we just have this dance number that happens in this wedding. I'm like, you know what? Like this the like this dance number is kind of interesting from what the parts that I gave a rip about watching. Um like we go on and we have like the parents that are kind of dancing it out, and then they kind of re gift that whole Hulk shirt uh, to eventually be used in this dance number, and then eventually Kamala ends up dancing, and she almost gets dropped because her brother's like, "Oh my god, I think she's gonna fall," and so they go on and they're dancing away, and then the like the brother ends up getting up there and he ends up dancing, and that's towards the end of the thing because I skipped because dancing and singing, no. So so it seems that there is going to have a moment between Kamala and Bruno where they're going to dance, and maybe they're going to have a close moment where Kamala is going to tell Bruno, it's like, hey, don't go to the school. I need you. And because I love you, I've loved you since forever. And no, we don't get that because Kamran just is like, hey, I have to just like tell Kamala that things are gonna get too dangerous for her, and that my mother just won't uh, like take no for an answer. That she wants Kamala to go on and take her to this dimension, and no, and there's no way that she's not gonna force this girl to do it. So Kamala is to come to find out that Najma is to make her way into this wedding, and so Kamala now has to pull the fire alarm, getting everybody out of here. And so now Kamala has to take everybody on by herself, with some help of Bruno, who tosses uh, this gift present at somebody. But so, and then Bruno ends up getting hurt, and then Kamala has to kind of limp Bruno on. Um, we also had the Brown Jovi, which was kind of cool, and we had we had Bon Jovi, some of the song, living on a or whatever the Living on a Prayer Bon Jovi song. It's been a while since I've listened to some Bon Jovi, in all brutal honesty. But they referenced this in the last episode, so I'm assuming it was probably going to get used here somewhere. But, anyways, so we have Kamala that is fighting off these guys, and we have one guy who, like, uses this, like, belt kind of weapon, and Kamran has this kind of like this string thing with this ball at the end of it. I don't know what any of these weapons are. They're really oddly never seen them before. So I didn't research any of these weapons because I didn't think I would need to describe them because like they look weird. So Kamala starts using her powers, and it's basically all the stuff that she has gone on and used in other episodes. like the whole like her using like the kind of the stepping thing to try to avoid some of these villains. Really, she's kind of mostly just evading them instead of fighting them. Like she's kind of hiding away from them in the kitchen to have them go on and have these guys kind of like search for her and bang these metal pieces for Kamala to get scared, and she uses her powers so that way they can figure out where she is. And so Kamala is fighting these guys, and it gets to the point where finally the DOD steps in and is to arrest all these guys and use weapons on them. And I'm kind of wondering if the weapons that they used uh, was possibly like the Agent Coulson weapon that they used from the Avengers movie, but like a lesser version of it. Because that's what it looked like at first. Um, like a weaker variation of that weapon. So, Nakia was at Kamala's party. Nakia was to tell Kamala that she was to be the new board member. So I'm like, good for her. Like, I'm really starting to like this character. Maybe. Because to like a character would mean that I would actually have to enjoy the show. Uh, but I'm just like, I like Nakia. Like, I think there's some possibility for Nakia to end up with Bruno if really, like, Kamala is just like, well, I don't know. Then Bruno needs to just end up with Nakia. If that's okay with anybody, because eventually Bruno should be getting some loving. Because that's what I'm assuming is going to happen at some point. So, so Kamala runs off with Bruno, and Kamala uses her power on this door. Naki is like, "What was that?" And so Naki is to realize that Kamala is Ms. Marvel, and I'm assuming at some point everybody's probably going to know who really Ms. Marvel is. Kamala at some point. So it's kind of funny because Kamala had to go on, and after she had left this wedding after party, she has to go on and talk to her parents, and her parents are like, "Well, hey, like Kamala, what's going on with you? We know that you pulled that fire alarm, and so like you need to tell us what's going on." Kamala's like, "Yeah, but I can't, and I would love to, but I just can't right now." So I'm like, "Wait a minute." She can just show her power off to Nakia, but like Kamala can't tell her parents that she's a superhero? Kinda weak. Uh, that just seems dumb. Random friend of hers, family members, very confused. Cause really, like, we have these villains who know who Kamala's family is. So really we could have these people snatching snatching up Kamala's family and threatening them, because I know that this is going to happen. It's going to be taken all over again, and Miss Marvel is going to turn into Liam Neeson and just not be having it. And I'm assuming that's where the story is going to head, right? If I'm wrong, I would be massively surprised. So, because we have to just keep holding on to what we've got. Rest of Bon Jovi song. Whoa, 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 whoa. Anyways, so Kamala is to run off because the DOD is going to be after her, knowing full well that she has to be Miss Marvel. So, after Kamala makes her way back home, talks to her parents about, hey, what's really going on, and she can't say anything, Kamala goes and is to get a phone call from her grandmama. And so her grandmother is telling her, because Kamala was at one point when Namra was to touch the bangle, all of a sudden they ended up seeing this train a coming for some weird reason. And when they like stopped touching, all of a sudden the train went away. And so Kamala's grandmother is telling Kamala that Kamala needs to come to where her grandmother is because her grandmother was to have also seen that train. Hence why Kamala's grandmother is saying, like, yeah, like I saw that train too. Hence why I'm telling you about the train. So you have to come here to meet with me, and we're gonna help you out. And that's how the episode just kind of ends. And I'm like, okay, Oakley Dokley, this is like a 48-minute episode. There wasn't a lot going on into it because it's Miss Marvel. But if people keep viewing this review, I will keep watching this show. I will admit that. Do I like the show? No, not at all. But if people continue to watch this review, I will continue to watch this show begrudgingly, but I'll still watch it. Because I feel that every single Marvel show we have to watch anyways. We have to watch regardless because eventually something better will come down the road. Really, when thinking about it, look at WandaVision. WandaVision gave us whatever the WandaVision was, but then after that, it gave us something great, which was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So, when we're really looking at it, like all these Disney Plus episodes may just not be my bag, but eventually it might eventually turn into something better down the road. That I actually will enjoy, that I'm actually willing to watch, and hopefully we just continue to have the MCU just keep putting out more characters. Whatever they are, will be, whatever, it may be interesting somewhere down the road. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.